Nostalgia can be a tricky thing. In video games, it can be a real tiger by the tail situation for developers. On one hand, it's a good way to snag people who remember that type of gameplay, mechanic, or visual style. On the other hand, you have to represent what made that experience great while also trying to carve out your own take on the genre. You have a wealth of previous games to draw inspiration from, but you're dealing with subject matter that some may consider sacred. It's just difficult to walk that fuzzy line between homage and ripoff. In the case of Stardew Valley, though, it has one game series in particular that it drew a heavy amount of inspiration from. So much in fact that I'm halfway surprised to not see a special thanks to Natsumi in the credits section. That game, of course, is Harvest Moon. I've always been a huge fan of the Harvest Moon, Rune Factory, and Innocent Life genre of games, so when I came to the PC looking at Stardew Valley, I came with a some would call a very discerning eye. For those of you not familiar with this type of game, you'll spend your time living the down-to-earth lifestyle of a farmer in a small town. While the main driving factor of Stardew revolves around restoring an old farm and making lots of money via foraging, agriculture, and caring for various animals, the real draw of the game is simply experiencing life as the new guy in a small town. You'll make friends, take part in local festivals, belly up to the local bar, improve your community, and, if you're lucky, maybe find that special someone to settle down with and have a few kids to pass your legacy on to. So a farming simulator sounds pretty boring when you view it from a high concept. And Stardew Valley isn't exactly trying to be an adrenaline-pumping experience either. It honestly seems to be trying to capture more of a tranquil reaction. That being said, there's plenty to do in the game and you'll rarely find yourself without anything to spend at least a few minutes doing. You can go spelunking, chat up the locals, gather resources, clear your fields, rummage through people's garbage, slog your way through the sewers, and some other fun and wholesome activities. Balancing all of these goals while keeping an eye on the clock and your energy gauge is key to getting the most out of each and every day. I have a lot of nice things to say about Stardew Valley. It's well paced, evokes a very classic Harvest Moon vibe, and offers dozens of hours of enjoyment. That and the fact that it's the only game of its ilk on the PC in recent memory certainly puts a few points in its favor. The art style is reminiscent of the SNES period while not looking outdated. The music is catchy without being distracted, and there's lots to do, blah 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 blah. Look, you've likely already got a very good idea of everything that makes Stardew Valley fun and unique. There's no shortage of people singing the praises of this game, and I happen to be one of them. But you're not likely to hear too much about the multitude of things that Stardew Valley gets wrong. Again, I love the game and have already put over 100 very enjoyable hours into it, but I wouldn't be doing my job as a reviewer if I didn't bring up the negative things as well. So without further ado, it's time to get this nitpicking train to leave the station. If there were an age-old game design question of how slow can I make the movement speed of the player character before people start to lose their minds, the answer is exactly the movement speed of the player character in Stardew Valley. The standard running speed of the PC in the game is, for lack of a more appropriate term, mind-numbing. It's not slow enough that it makes you want to quit playing, but it's just slow enough that it evokes the same emotion I get when I have a piece of popcorn shell stuck between my teeth. Annoying, and given enough time, I'm willing for there to be bloodshed if it helps alleviate the problem. The biggest gripe I currently have with the game is the less than stellar controller support. The developer has voiced that he will be trying to update the clunky controller support at a later date, but at the time of this writing, it's a less than optimal way to play the game. Using a controller works for most things, but I wouldn't call it the best option. Using a mouse and keyboard is clearly the intended control scheme. While the functionality of the mouse is mapped to one of the control sticks, the moment you try to actually play the game with a controller, you might as well be Michael J. Fox trying to master the art of needlepoint. Next stop on the Complaint Express is the personalities of the town folks. In games like Harvest Moon and Rune Factory, the NPCs start off very friendly, and eventually your friendships start to blossom into more intimate relationships. In the beginning of Stardew Valley, most of the villagers act like they would have been happier if the bus carrying you to town had careened off the road and been enveloped in a fiery explosion. And then you got Ebola and died suffering a few weeks later. While not all of the NPCs are rude, a good chunk of them exude a dirtbag vibe that make you not even want to be friends with them. The last major complaint is regarding the difficulty of some of the activities in the game. The arcade games in the bar can be insanely difficult, almost to the point where you want to put your fist through your monitor. But the real gripe comes from the fishing minigame. Much of the game's content is locked behind your ability to fish. While there are steps that you can take to ease this issue, the more valuable fish in the game cause the minigame to feel unfair and mainly just not fun. I'm certainly not alone in this either, as one of the more popular mods currently available for the game makes fishing much easier. What's wrong with fishing being super difficult, you ask? First of all, don't ask questions in the middle of a review, it's rude. Secondly, it doesn't match the tone of the rest of the game. Most of the experience is laid back and you take things at your own pace. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, sitting down for a nice, relaxing, quiet meal with your family. The music is soft, the temperature in the room is just right. The food smells delicious, and all is right with the world. Just as you go to pick up a lovely dinner roll. The thing won't sit down. Still 2 seconds. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm good. I'm good now. But that is what fishing in Stardew Valley feels like. Any other complaints I have about the game are very minor. Whether you played Rune Factory or Story of Seasons or Innocent Life or any of the cartoon farming genre games, Stardew Valley is actually an awesome addition to the genre. It manages to capture the essence of those early Harvest Moon games while also having a voice of its own. While it's not perfect by any means, it's a brave entry on a platform that is really struggling to find high-quality games of this ilk. I couldn't be happier about the game's success, and hopefully it's not the last we've heard from the developer. Now if you'll excuse me, I've got some high-quality parsnips to harvest.